Hey everyone, welcome to another rapid fire review, this time for Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed Mirage. Assassin's Creed Mirage is being sold as a standalone, major installment of the Assassin's Creed franchise. Though it originally started off as a DLC for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but sometime during its development, Ubisoft decided to increase it to a full-size status. I have played most, but not all of the Assassin's Creed games, and I actually do enjoy the franchise quite a bit. I love the historical tie-ins, the stealth missions, exploration, and I'm generally willing to overlook most of the standard Ubisoft bugs, and even how ridiculous the Abstergo stuff got. So I actually enjoyed much of Mirage, because for the most part it does feel like the older Assassin's Creed games. Now in Mirage we play as Basim, a poor street thief living in Baghdad. And after a robbery goes bad, we find ourselves in the middle of a massive conflict with the Hidden Ones, the Order of the Ancients, and the people and rulers of the city. The gameplay is standard Assassin's Creed. Lots of stealing, murdering, and then running away. Main missions are usually infiltrations that can be done with the utmost care and planning, or you just sprint through them with a pocket full of throwing knives and smoke bombs. You can upgrade your character with gear sets that can be found or purchased, though the gear sets themselves don't really do much other than change how you look. It felt like a missed opportunity. And the weapons are kind of the same. There's some minor differences between them, but ultimately another place I would have expected more of an impact. The gadget unlocks and upgrades is perhaps the most important and gameplay-changing aspect of the game. Some of them will drastically change on how you approach situations and really elevates the gameplay. If you play this game, the very first thing you should do is unlock the ability to reuse throwing knives. The gameplay in Mirage shines when you do the story missions for the first time. Sneaking through a prison, murdering every single guard, using the gadgets in crazy ways, and then leaping off the fourth story to stab some idiot patrolling the yard who has been ignoring all of the screaming and dying noises. If you've liked this style of gameplay in the past, I am sure you will like these sections here. The historical database is also pretty incredible. You unlock articles gradually as the game goes on, and it really showcases the 9th century culture in Baghdad. There are pictures of artifacts, and there's art, and I really highly recommend checking it all out. The music here is quite good, when the game isn't oddly silent. After the game ended and some music played during the credits, it just kind of made me mad. Instead of having this great stuff when the game was going on, I only got to hear it when it was over. The parkour, in the few times it works, it feels cinematic, smooth, and looks really good. The problem is that'll probably happen to you maybe twice, and Basim instead gets stuck on tiny ledges. And I do mean tiny little curbs on tops of walls that for some reason he just will not jump off before he takes 3 or 4 attacks to the face. Jumping out of the windows is an absolute nightmare, and you have maybe a 50-50 chance that when you jump from a rooftop to another one that he picks the one that you're aiming for. When running away from guards, it's just best to do it on flat ground. Don't try to parkour. If you do, you'll just be killed while you're sticking to a wall like a 4-year-old pretending to be Spider-Man. Of course, you can, in theory, attack the guards back, but the combat in Mirage is pretty awful. Enemies will attack with either gray attacks or red attacks. You stand awkwardly in front of them, and then if they do a gray attack, you hit block, and then you just assassinate them. If they do a red attack, you hit dodge, and then just wait for them to do a gray attack. It's clunky, it feels terrible, and I don't care if it's closer to how things used to be. Game systems can and should be improved as time goes on. Combat at least can mostly be avoided, but there are some scripted fights that you're just going to have to do. Writing-wise, it's very mixed bag. Some of it's interesting stuff dealing with a tumultuous time in Baghdad's history. Other time we're trying to convince a peasant woman to let us help her find her son, but she won't do it until we go get those flowers, which are just 30 feet over there, to put on her husband's grave. There's also a massive disparity between narrative and gameplay, where our character gets really mad at an ally of ours who tortures and kills a bad guy, so that we can save the city. And you forget that at this point in the game, we have violently stabbed, sliced, lacerated, blown up, poisoned, burned to death, and in true cartoon fashion, dropped a ton of bricks on about 1,000 different people in the city, with varying levels of innocence. We also have odd sections where a character's telling us how conflicted we are about the events and our position within the Hidden Ones. and there hasn't been a single bit of conflict that has been presented. It was really bizarre. Now, it wouldn't be an Ubisoft game without bugs, and there are a lot of them here. The AI is just laughably bad. Sometimes the guards get stuck in loops. Other times they don't react when you kill the person they're talking to. Other times they're just super soldiers with, walkie-talkies or telepathic links to other guards. Because even when you have 1-star alert status, some of them will aggro you from hundreds of yards away, even when you've run into other districts. I do like how polite they are when you assassinate them, though. Even if they're doing something, they make the effort to stand up and face you and kind of give you a greeting while they're being stabbed. I had waypoints in the game constantly disappear, which, isn't fun when traversing a copy-pasted bloated cityscape. Points of interest in my investigations wouldn't be highlighted, and I would have to save and reload to get them to pop up. The worst of the bugs was the one that made NPCs uninteractable. It actually happened quite a bit with merchants, and I would have to save the game and come back to sell things. But then it started happening to NPCs at the end of big missions, where you can't save the game and come back. You have to reload and do the entire mission over again. It happened twice to me in the last mission, and I really was not having fun. For this being sold as a standalone, I think the overall story of the game, dealing with the city and its situation with the Order, will make sense to people who are jumping in without having played Valhalla first. But the end of the game, dealing with who Basim is and his strange visions, will absolutely make no sense to you. So again, this is just a DLC that they decided to bloat up, instead of something they actually turned into a standalone game. Even with being bloated up, the game only took me about 14 hours. 12 for the main mission, and a few hours for side missions and exploring. I probably would have done a little more, but the side missions really didn't have a whole lot of variety, and some of them were just redoing story missions. Now, Ubisoft claims the short length is to celebrate the series and the older Assassin's Creed titles. And while that's definitely a possibility, I believe the more likely reason is they wanted to take a $30 DLC and sell it to you for $50. So that brings up the value proposition. This game is short, and that's not always a bad thing. I mean, there's plenty of 30 to 60 hour bloated games that overstay their welcome. But if the game is going to be this short, it has to be polished. This game feels like a low-res image that was just stretched far too big. As a $30 DLC, with a bit more work put into it, it probably would have been decent, if not a really good game. But when you tell me that this is a mainline Assassin's Creed game and want almost full price, my expectations are going to be higher. Now, the game's got a lot of good, but it definitely has a lot of bad. So Assassin's Creed Mirage is going to get a 5 out of 10. It is an average game. I did enjoy a lot of what's here. And I get that they were aiming for short but sweet, but they definitely missed the mark on how sweet it needed to be. Thanks so much for watching this rapid fire review. The next one is going to be on Lords of the Fallen. I'll see you then on the next Angry Joe Show.